asking about sled service videos and getting your sled ready for the season. We've got Ben's sled here, and we are going to get it all ready for the season. All the other ones in the fleet are ready to go. Ben, he's always behind on the service a little bit. Usually it's about up to the last day. One year he didn't even have a sled up to 2 days before we were going. So first of all, you're going to grab the biggest beer that you can. Usually if you got a guy like Ben, he'll bring it for you if you're servicing his sled.
I'm nice like that.
He's a good guy, because if you've never done this before, you're in for a little bit of a challenge maybe, especially when it comes to your chain case. So of course I had to write down the things we're going to check, because I've already been into the liquor here. So we're going to check your chain case. We're actually going to take the cover right off of it and inspect it. Inspect your chain, inspect your drivers, inspect that chain tensioner. I'm going to show you where all the grease points are. We're going to show you how to set the throttle here today. Check some of your wear parts, your high facts, your skegs. Check out your shocks, your electrical, belt. We'll set the tension on the belt free play, the belt deflection. We will also check out those clutches, and we will show you how to check your track tension as well as your track alignment. This isn't a full check over video, but it gives you an idea of the things that you can check before the season starts. So I'm going to be making Ben do a bunch of the stuff here today. There's your fancy spring puller. Your fancy spring puller.
We're going to see these go flying somewhere.
Yeah, we'll be getting the exhaust that pull from the other side of the spring. Other side. Oh, now you're getting it. We're going to start by taking the exhaust off of this, and then that gives us enough room to swing the chain case cover around. And I can already tell I'm going to need to take off the exhaust, and we'll show you what's going on inside the chain case. So on an M8, we have to move some stuff out of the way. You can see Ben's actually doing the right thing here. He's going around and breaking them all loose before taking any out. So he's doing the right thing there. Just loosening them all off before we go ahead and take any out. So make sure to have your oil pan ready here.
I was going to say, is there a pan there?
There's a pan there, ready to catch the chain case oil. Ben, take out all the screws here. And I'm going to open this thing up. I'll show you exactly what to check for in here, and if anything's going wrong. Now these Arctic Cat chain cases, they have an automatic tensioner, and we will inspect that first of all. So I'm going to actually take the automatic tensioner right out of this, and I can tell from this is the wear pad. So basically I can tell from this wear pad right away that there's nothing wrong with this chain, and I'll show you how to check if it's stretched in a minute. But generally, if you have a link broken, and generally these chains will break one link at a time, so there'll be a wear indicator here of basically a big cut right through your pad, and that's a really quick way to tell if your chain is good or not, as far as it having any broken links or if it's on the way out. We'll just check the pad and make sure that it's worn evenly, and this pad has tons of life left in it. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this chain tensioner back in. So there we go. We have the chain tensioner back in. We like to actually fully inspect it. Fully inspect our chain cases at the beginning of the season. So this has the automatic tensioner in it. We're going to just check and make sure it's working properly. So we are actually going to set Ben's chain case to where that chain tension is proper. And that's actually a really good chain tension right there. If you actually have a Skidoo chain case, or there are variations of the Arctic Cat chain cases that do have the manual tensioner, generally rule of thumb is finger tight with the manual tensioner adjustment, and that's gonna have the proper that's gonna give you the proper slack here. This is pretty much perfect. That's where we want to be. A ½ inch free play, that's pretty good. We want it to be not banjo string tight. We want a little bit of play in there. This is designed to tighten up as time goes on. It will tighten up automatically, and I gotta put that spring in properly or else it's gonna keep coming out. So everything's good in here. We've inspected it. We've made sure our chain tension is good. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna clean out this whole thing. Same with the cover on this side. We're going to clean it out, make sure that thing is spotless. Everything's all good in there, so now all we're going to do is make sure that nothing actually fell out or nothing's improper or anything like that. And this is all good. Our chain tension is good. And we're going to put the outer case back on. We've cleaned the inside of that outer case as well. One's got her nice and clean. So that's all there is left to do, is stuff the case back on. Alright, so Ben has the cover of the chain case all put back on here. We got our Arctic Cat chain lube we're using for this. After we got all the bolts tightened up. We use actually a 15-ounce bottle. It calls for 12, but we'll stick in 15 because the 15-ounce bottle will actually bring it to the top of your sight glass down there. A 12-ounce bottle will only bring it about halfway up that sight glass. So if you stick in the 15, it'll bring it right to the top. So you just pull out your fill plug there, and you can use a funnel here, but if you're like me, you just stuff her in there as fast as you can and you just let her have it. We can verify that it is right to the top of the glass, which is our proper level. I'm just going to clean up the little bit of oil we spilled, just a little bit. Clean up our plug, and just stuff her back in there, and your chain case is now completely serviced. It is ready to go for the season. So now Ben's just gonna stick his can back in here. And after we do that, we'll move on to what's next. Okay, by this time you should be about halfway done your beer, because that was that's half of it right there. So next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna set your throttle free play here. So believe it or not, there is actually a spec to how loose or tight this should be. I've read on the forums, that people are saying, oh, no throttle free play, it's fuel injected, doesn't need any throttle free play, any throttle free play is bad. That's not true. If your throttle free play was actually too tight, you could activate your throttle safety switch. So what you do to check that, you go over here, you go into your friend's wallet, and you grab a credit card or a bank card or whatever out of his wallet. Like this one's set actually perfectly, and we don't need to adjust it. And there's a little tooth right here. And you may not have that tooth if you have a different brand, but you can just slip a credit card in between that and your throttle block. That is, like Ben's, we don't actually have to change because he's got the perfect throttle free play right there, which is actually a 30th of an inch to a 60th of an inch, but using a credit card to tell that, where it's supposed to be, like right there, that's perfect. If we were to adjust that on these sleds, here's our throttle cable right here. Hopefully it's not too dark in there. There is a rubber grommet over the boot, or a boot over the adjuster, which is an 8mm. I'll just pull it open. Take my second to pull it off. So there's actually the adjuster, and hopefully Ben can see that with the camera. Yeah, I can see that there. Kinda. Anyway, you find your throttle adjustment, and from there you tighten it or loosen it. Generally, they'll loosen off over time, and you need to make some adjustment as far as tightening it. Just to make sure that you're maintaining the right amount of free play. If you have a left-hand throttle, don't be afraid to put your free play a little bit on the loose side, because that left-hand throttle will sometimes stick a little bit or maybe over pull when you're turning left and right. So having a little bit on the loose side with left-hand throttle is not such a bad thing. We don't actually have to set Ben's. Ben's is perfect right there, so we're all good there. So next we're checking our belt deflection. So generally, on cats anyway, Skidoo talks a lot about belt height. We don't deal in belt height with cats. We're dealing with belt deflection. So if you need to adjust your belt height, go ahead and Google that, because that's going to be a little bit different than what we're doing here. If I were to want to tighten this belt deflection, which I can already tell you, again, this is something we don't actually need to set on this, because this belt deflection is right where we want it, which on this unit is going to be 1 inch to 1.25 inches with 20 pounds of downward force. That's how much deflection we want. I know that's kind of hard to visualize, but I mean, I do 2 or 3 of these a day, and I can tell you that this is the proper deflection. What you'd really want to do to tell the exact, if you want an exact science on it, you'd put a straight edge like this across the sheave, so across the top of your belt, and then you'd actually push with a ruler downward, and you'd measure how much deflection you have there, and you'd stop basically when the bottom of the belt starts to move up. So Ben's is, again, his deflection is perfect here, and we're not going to adjust it. If we were to adjust it, this is going to be different on a ton of different clutches, so you're going to have to consult your owner's manual to figure out exactly how you either adjust your belt deflection or belt height. What we would do here is actually loosen off that jam nut, and I'm not actually going to do it because I don't want to adjust his deflection. So after we loosened off that jam nut, I'd move this adjuster nut this adjuster bolt rather, in or out. So if I were to move it in, that would actually tighten up, if I were to move this adjuster inward, that would loosen his belt deflection. If I were to move this adjuster outward, that would tighten up belt deflection, because this affects how close these sheaves are from each other. And basically that's how we adjust our deflection to the point where Ben's is now, and we're not going to touch it because that's perfect.
This belt's still in pretty good shape, eh?
Yeah, you definitely want to inspect the belt.
It's funny because this is the belt that this sled came with back in 2016.
Yeah, we're definitely getting longer belt life out of there. So whoever's saying that Pro Climb belts, they don't last a long time is...
This whole thing's been held wide open and seen lots of traction.
It's full of it. So yeah, you would want to go around and inspect your belt for basically any burn marks you may see in there, any fraying. Mine, I know on my sleds, all just cracked to shit. So inspect your belt while you're in here. Definitely not a bad thing. We will be also, since we're in here, we will be servicing and cleaning these clutches. You can do that with compressed air. If I were actually doing this at the shop, I'd be polishing up this whole clutch and making it look brand new. And we'll also be cleaning up the faces of that. But Ben's clutch is actually really clean here. We would actually be blowing out all the clutches with compressed air, and we'd be cleaning them up with either brake clean or some kind of other non-oil based solvent, and just making them look, brand new. Would be ideal, but Ben's aren't looking too bad here. A little dirty, and we'll be blowing these all the orifices with compressed air, making sure his faces are nice and clean on both the clutches. And he will be ready to go for another year with this belt that's probably got... How many kilometers you got on this belt? 2,100?
2,100.
2,100 kilometers, and you don't ride this thing easy. Another thing on my checklist is actually to check your shocks. You make sure if you got an air shock, a gas shock like this, is just making sure the pressures are the same on both your fronts. Really, just not a whole lot to check here. Just make sure they're returning, make sure they're not sticking. Same with the back, make sure it's returning fully. But that's about all we really check without getting into too much diagnostic on these shocks. Just making sure your pressures are the same and make sure they're going down and returning as well. Okay, Ben, bring that thing up on its side there. Oh yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, we'll start up at the ski here. So we're just checking out any wear parts that we have. So basically, the two main wear parts we're going to worry about today are your skegs with your carbides, and then your high facts. We'll start up here with the skegs. So this whole bar, that's the skeg. This is the carbide. This is not the carbide. This is the carbide. This is not the carbide. This is the carbide. That thing right there. This 4-inch strip of metal, that is the carbide. So basically we're just checking out, as long as you still have any carbide left, you're in good shape. These wear bars they're in fine shape. They haven't really seen a whole lot of rocks, these sleds, but he's probably 75% left on the carbide there. You don't necessarily have to replace the entire skeg once you're out of carbide. You just want to replace it before the wear bar is flat, basically. But this one's still in fairly good shape. There's a little bit of flattening here, but we still have plenty of carbide left. Same with the other side. So we're going to continue with these skegs on this unit because there's no problem with them. And these are just simple things that are easy to check. So what we're going to look at here is the high facts, or the sliders. So on these sliders, you can see, if actually you can see on the camera, there are two different lines here. So the first line indicates once you get down to this line, it basically means it's time to start thinking about changing out your high facts. By the time you're up on this line, this upper one, you're track on metal. So when you're in this little gap between them, that means, okay, time to start thinking about changing them. So just inspect it. It's very rarely that it'll wear evenly the whole way along. Generally, the high wear areas are right down in here. So just make sure that we inspect your whole high facts there and make sure it's got no low spots, as well as your rail end caps. Make sure those aren't worn down excessively. And these ones are looking good. You can see it's starting to wear a little bit there, but these Hyfax still have more than 80% left on them. So we are good there. This is in good shape. This is also going to depend on what sled you have. These Pro Climbs, as well as the Ascenders, have 4 grease points. There's a grease point down here on this axle. There's a grease point on this axle in between. And then you also have a grease point right here. That's the only places that you have to grease on these Pro Climbs. There's only 4 of them on the entire skid. If you have an older sled, you may have grease points up on the spindle or in the steering. These sleds don't have it. There's only 4 points you got to grease. Everything else is greaseless. So we're going to fire some grease into those points, and that'll be another thing off the list. Using a low temperature grease, I'm just piling it onto these fittings here and just going until we feel it start to solid up.
You can hear it pushing the air out.
You can hear it pushing the air out, and there, I can feel it on the handle. It's become solid. Same with this one. And we'll just go around to all those points and make sure that it's full of grease and ready for the year. Bad boy back over. Oh yeah. So what we're going to do next is we are going to bring this thing outside because we have to run it up now just to check out those last few items on our list.
It'd be loud and smoky if we did that in here.
Yeah, we don't want to do that in here, so we're going to wheel it outside and we'll go over the last things that we want to check out on this sled just to have it ready for the season.
We're good.
Okay, you recording?
We're recording.
Okay. So we got the sled outside here. We got it on our track stand. What we're going to do now is we're going to check our track tension. So on this track, and this is going to be different on various models, various makes, various years. On this sled, we want 2 inches of gap between this, the track itself, and our rails with 20 pounds of downward force. So that, again, is something hard to imagine. I set so many of these a year that this one is actually maybe a little on the tight side, but it's not bad. So we're just going to run up the sled real quick and we're going to leave it for now. We're going to rotate the track a few times and then we're going to check our alignment. So once we do that, which I'll do right now, we will check our track alignment. So we do that just to make sure that that track is basically going true on its own, that we're not just running it on the ground or on the snow, and that may throw off what may have already been a good alignment. So we're just, as an easy way of doing this, we basically want to compare just how much that these little outer cogs, these little outer lugs sit on this side between the rails as compared to how much they sit on the other side. So we'll have a look at this one. So these ones are very close. The track tension on this is very close, so we're actually not going to do any adjustment on this one. If we were to adjust it on this particular setup, we'd have to go back and forth with the adjustment. We'd have to go back and forth side to side to play with it, because we have to loosen up this side, then we'd either tighten or loosen this bolt here, and then we'd actually have to tighten up this side again before we could go over to the other side. So that's something you play with a little bit, and make sure that your track tension as well as your alignment are set well in relation to each other, because sometimes you can set the tension and then while you're setting the alignment you throw off the tension. So you want to make sure while you set the alignment that your tension is good too. And this one is perfect, so we're actually not going to touch it. Last thing on our list is we're going to check our electrical real quick. So we're going to run it up. We're going to make sure our kill switch works. We're going to make sure our hand warmers work. We're going to make sure our tether works. We're going to make sure everything on our gauge works. Lights, brake lights, high-low. We're going to make sure that everything works. We're just going to run it up real quick here and just test everything. functioning snowmobile by the end of that.
We were talking, you just couldn't tell.
I was talking that whole time. You didn't hear the outro? Stick the side panels back on it. It has been basically ready for the season. It could go on a trailer right now, and it could go to the mountains, and we could be riding in mere hours.
We'd like to. It's raining today, though.
It's raining here in Alberta today, that's right. Thanks everybody for watching this video. I know it's not a full check-over video, and that was not the intention. It's just some of the basic things that I do to get our sleds, all our entire fleet, ready for the winter. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. Message us on Instagram. If you have anything a little more technical that you want a direct answer to, we'll see you out there on the hill in just a few weeks here. We got a trip planned to Revelstoke right away. I know people are already out riding. We're not. We're doing this.
Yeah.
But we will be ready to go right away. So do what you guys do best. Subscribe, like, comment. Ring that stupid little bell, because that's all YouTube cares about. So that's all I have to care about. And we'll see everybody in the next